The Mortuary Assistant is definitely a film only Halloween 365ers can love. Hi, I'm author R.L. Raintree, and this is Reels and Reads, where I give honest reviews and occasional spoilers. The trailer for The Mortuary Assistant was very intense. It promised to be something like a mix between The Night Shift and I'd say The Autopsy of Jane Doe. It definitely looked like a movie that was going to take place in a mortuary. There was going to be some demon possession, some calamity was going to ensue, and it promised to terrify the bejesus out of me. The moment I heard the mortician say to embalm the body and then cremate it, I knew that this was going to be some heavy duty spiritual warfare. Unfortunately, that's not what I got. So, starting with the things that I did like the way the corpse is reanimated because of the demon, of course. Watching those sinister smiles and those creepy eyes open up under the sheets definitely sent chills down my spine. In fact, every scene involving the demon was really, really creepy, whether it was in the mortuary or whether it was in her apartment, her being the main character, Rebecca. Something about the demon, the way the demon presented itself was just really gave me goosebumps. I also really like the scene that takes place in Rebecca's apartment. It really had me fooled. I'm not going to get much more into it than that because I don't want to spoil it, but just know that what I thought was happening is not what was happening, and I definitely cringed from the gore of it all. Not so much that we see certain substances, but more so just the brutality of the scene was, oddly enough to say, very enjoyable. And now to the things that I didn't like. I didn't like that I was sold on this being very dark and horrifying, dead rising, evil dead. I expected something much darker than it was. This was more of a horror drama than anything. Throughout the film, whenever it got really intense or exciting, or the demon was doing something really scary, we would pause the action to have some sort of flashback. And the problem with the flashbacks is not only their timing, but they were confusing. I didn't understand what story they were trying to tell us, and they were breadcrumbing it to us. We get a little bit of a hint of what was going on, and then, some time would pass. There'd be, the demon would crack a bone or something, and then we'd interrupt that moment for her again being Rebecca to have a flashback. They were poorly timed and they weren't very clear. At one point we get a really poor CGI angelic scene where someone who's passed away comes back to deliver a message of inspiration. That entire scene was out of place, and I have to say it really made this film look low budget. And speaking of the film looking low budget, the lighting was really bad. There were times when we were meant to see demonic symbols, and I couldn't see what the symbols were. I only knew that there was supposed to be some sort of thread there, that they were supposed to be related. This symbol appears on this paper and that paper, but I couldn't actually see the symbol to verify that. So the lighting was so dark that I couldn't necessarily appreciate any of the practical special effects. And then there's the mortician himself. I thought from the trailer he might be a villain, or maybe we might be tricked into thinking he was a villain when he wasn't. Instead, what we got was a man who was so obscure I don't even understand why he was even in the film. At one point, he begins to tell us what's happening, how Rebecca needs to fight it. I mean, one of the highlights of the trailer was Rebecca saying, "So what do we do?" And when he finally begins to tell us what needs to be done, we're interrupted with yet another flashback that didn't make any sense. Now, the mortician was intriguing. He had a lot of weird, creepy stuff going on, but what was the point if we were never fully told what was going on? At one point, there's a complete cop out where he says, just look at the tapes. And for reasons I don't understand, he decided to record, life and death information on VHS tapes instead of, at the very least, put it on a DVD, if not a flash drive. And of course, just when the tapes are about to give us everything we need to know, or at least help us understand what's happening here, Rebecca fast forwards. Like, I understand that she's trying to get to the point where she figures out how to survive, but could we at least learn a thing or two? Like, it was kind of a cop out. We weren't even allowed to know who the demon was. It's almost like that part hadn't been thought out. I really wanted to love this movie, and I think that if you are a Halloween 365er, you're at least going to give it, 4 stars. It's one of the labors of love when it comes to being a horror fan. Not every horror film is going to be great. We love the bad movies as much as we love the good ones. I will say that it's a good thing that this is on Shudder. It is a Shudder quality movie, but if this were in the theater, you would be very angry for the money that you spent. It has so much potential, and then it just made a hard left turn and made it all about Rebecca's past, and I don't know, I just didn't care enough about Rebecca for the constant flashbacks. So as a result, I am giving this film 3 out of 5 stars because the idea was great, the execution of the demon possession scenes were great. It did have some substance there, but the execution and the lighting was a very, very big problem. Let me know what you think. Were you planning to watch this movie? Have you already seen it? Drop in the comments and let me know.